Good afternoon, everybody. Come on now. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, do me a favor. Clap your hands one time. Try that again. Clap your hands one time. Clap your hands two times. Clap your hands three times. Make some noise. If you guys are doing that. That's what I'm talking about. So my name is Mike. Oh, I gotta use the mic. All right. My name is Mike, and I need a mic, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the honor and privilege of coming here and sharing something with you that is very, very passionate to me, and that is making safety inspections a non-negotiable item. So, I think it's no secret to everybody that the John Eagle case, where this wonderful family got very, very badly injured, and their lives are changed forever. And I think our entire industry talks about that. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you why quality of repairs is so personally important to me. And this is right here. This is my dad. My dad's name was Albert M. Anderson, and he went by the name of Andy. My dad was one of 9 children. They grew up very, very poor in the state of Virginia in a coal mining town. And when my dad was 16 years old, he forged his birth certificate to go into the military to send money back home to take care of his brothers and sisters, because that's what people did back then. There's a picture of my dad in the military. He was in the airborne. And when my dad was 16, he was jumping out of airplanes. My dad was in the military during the Vietnam era. And this was my dad. Well, let me tell you what happened. My dad jumped out of his airplane one day, and his parachute did not open properly. And it did what was called a Mae West. And my dad's parachute streamlined to the ground with his parachute not functioning properly, and it broke both my dad's legs and his back. He was in Walter Reed Hospital for 2 years, and it paralyzed his left leg. And my dad got out of the military as a disabled vet. My dad could never run and play ball with me as a kid. My dad could never swim. My dad could never snow ski. And this was my dad right here, if we can get the next slide to click up, as he was recovering from his wounds from that fateful day when his parachute did not function properly. So that was my dad. Like I said, he was in Walter Reed Hospital for 2 years. So the thing is that my dad just passed away this past May at 83 years old. And what happened was my dad went to the hospital because of his leg injuries. They weren't sure if they were going to have to amputate his leg. So he went into the hospital for them to do a process on his leg. And what happened was when they did the process, they didn't sew him back up properly, and he was bleeding internally, and they didn't discover it for 3 days until after he had a massive heart attack. But let's get back to the root cause. And that is, why did my dad's parachute fail on that one day? It's because somebody did not pack his parachute properly. You see, ladies and gentlemen, in the military, you have what's called a parachute rigger. And what they do is after every single jump in the military, and I also was in the military, you have a parachute rigger that lays your parachute out on a table, and they inspect every single thread and every single inch and millimeter of that parachute to make sure there's no tears, there's no damage, that it's clean. So why did my dad's parachute not function properly? It's because somebody did not pack his parachute properly. And that affected my dad for the rest of his life, which led to him going into the hospital. And what happened again? The doctors made a mistake, didn't sew him up properly, and he passed away. So my dad had his life impacted, not just once, but twice, because somebody didn't do their job properly. That's why quality is so important to me. So ladies and gentlemen, every single OEM manufacturer, ladies and gentlemen, every single OEM manufacturer has a document that says these inspections are required after a vehicle's been in an accident. Things such as inspecting the seat belts, removing and inspecting the steering column, inspecting the steering gear or rack assembly, inspecting the SCRS connectors, and so much more, ladies and gentlemen. And we have a moral and an ethical obligation. Can I get an amen? We have a moral and an ethical obligation, ladies and gentlemen, to follow these OEM repair procedures to the nth degree. They are non-negotiable. Here's an example right here. If you look at this is on a Jeep in all data is repairs and inspections required after collision that talks about that the steering column must be replaced if it's in a frontal collision. Let's continue on here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me give you a real-world example. This is a 2018 Chevrolet Silverado. This vehicle came into Tim Papp's shop in Illinois. This vehicle is a very minor accident. It's hit in the front end, ladies and gentlemen. And you'll see that as Tim inspected this vehicle, he pulled the OEM repair procedures, and when he pulled them, he saw that General Motors had a 4-page document stating what things need to be inspected if that specific vehicle was in an accident. A 4-page document. So what did Tim do, ladies and gentlemen? He pulled this document, he reviewed it, and it said you need to inspect the brake pedal, so Tim did. You need to inspect the A-pillar grab handle, so Tim did. You need to R&I the headliner, and Tim did. And you need to inspect the mounting locations, and Tim did. And you need to inspect the seat tracks, and Tim did. And you need to inspect the seat belts, and Tim did. And you need to R&I the dash, and Tim did. And look what he found. A cracked dash carrier. Ladies and gentlemen, what would have happened had Tim not removed that dash? We would have not have packed that customer's parachute properly. Ladies and gentlemen, let's continue on. Let's look at Subaru. Subaru has a document that says if any Subaru is in an accident, no matter how minor, we must R&I and measure the steering column. Ladies and gentlemen, we worked with a shop and we pulled these procedures and we did a test and we found, ladies and gentlemen, that we measured 26 steering columns and 43% of those needed to be replaced. Now, there were people that will argue and say, well, Mike, yeah, but we paid to R&I 57% and there was nothing wrong with them and we had to pay for that. Well, let's not talk about the ones we R&I'd that did need to replace. Let's talk about the 43% that did and what would have happened had we not done that. Because the United States government mandated collapsible steering columns in 1997, if I remember correctly. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, every single OEM manufacturer actually states that we must perform these safety inspections. Toyota has procedures, Nissan has procedures, Subaru, Mercedes, Audi, GM, Ford, Chrysler. And ladies and gentlemen, every time we don't perform those safety inspections, we are not packing their parachute properly. You know, I reached out to the industry and I said, iCar, this is the biggest friction point between shops and insurers, and you got to get involved and help us. And iCar said, let's put together a summit, Mike. And they did. And 2 days before the summit, iCar called me and they said, we only have 15 people signed up, Mike. Is this really a problem? Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we're our own worst enemy. So I got a bunch of my friends and colleagues, and we got over 100 people on that webinar. And what came out of this, ladies and gentlemen, was that, first of all, you know, Chrysler revised some of their language. GM revised some of their language. But more importantly, is iCar set up a link that says if you need to do these and you feel it's unnecessary, or you have an insurance carrier that doesn't want to pay for it, not picking on insurance companies, but there is a path to resolution by getting involved. Submit an inquiry to this link. And you know what's happened, ladies and gentlemen? This link was set up almost 18 months ago, and they've only had 7 people submit inquiries. 7 people, 7 shops out of 32,000. So ladies and gentlemen, as I close this out, I want you to understand this. My dad's life was impacted because somebody did not pack his parachute properly. My dad recently passed away because the doctors didn't follow protocol and follow up and didn't make sure he wasn't sewed up properly, and he bled internally for 3 days, and in his heart, he had a heart failure and he passed away. My dad has life impacted twice because somebody didn't do their job the right way. So ladies and gentlemen, as I close out, my question for you is, and I challenge you, and I challenge us as an industry, that we have a moral and an ethical obligation to ensure that we're packing their parachute safely every single time, and that is performing the proper repairs the right way. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time we quit saying they don't want to pay for that as an excuse for our not compliance. Ladies and gentlemen, if you agree with what I said, please give me an amen. My name is Mike Anderson. God bless you, and thank you for having me.